The massive crystalline ships emerged from the darkness of space like glittering diamonds against black velvet. Ambassador Cathara stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, watching the blue-green planet grow larger in the viewing screen.
For
many cycles, the Valkyrie had observed this world from a distance. Studying the strange creatures that lived on its surface, the humans were fascinating in their simplicity. Through their long-range sensors, the Valkyrie had watched these beings gather in large stone buildings, moving in patterns that seemed ritualistic. They would bow their heads, raise their hands, and speak in unison. Clearly, these were religious ceremonies to honor their primitive gods. The humans appeared to be a deeply spiritual species, which would make them easy to guide and control. Cathara felt confident about this mission. The Valkyrie Collective had encountered dozens of primitive worlds before. The pattern was always the same. Show up with superior technology, demonstrate their power, and the local species would fall to their knees in worship. Then came the slow process of civilizing them, teaching them proper ways of thinking and living. The ambassador adjusted the translation device attached to their throat. The humans used crude vocal sounds to communicate, unlike the elegant telepathic methods of the Valkyrie. Still, their computers had decoded enough of the human language to make basic communication possible. Below them, the planet's largest land masses came into view. The Valkyrie had chosen to make first contact over the peninsula the humans called Korea. Their observations showed this region had many of the stone worship buildings and a dense population. It seemed like an ideal place to begin their civilizing mission. The fleet of 12 ships moved into formation above the city the humans called Seoul. Each vessel was nearly a kilometer long, their crystal hulls reflecting sunlight in brilliant rainbow patterns. The sight should have been beautiful enough to inspire immediate reverence from the primitive beings below. But something was wrong. Instead of crowds gathering in the streets to stare up in wonder, the city below erupted into organized chaos. Strange metal vehicles moved rapidly through the streets. Humans ran not in panic, but with purpose and direction. Most disturbing of all, the Valkyrie sensors detected energy signatures powering up across the region. Admiral Kim Tae stood in the underground command center beneath Seoul, watching the displays that showed the alien ships hovering over his city. He had been expecting this day for 3 years. Ever since the deep space monitoring stations had first detected the approaching fleet, the aliens had been watching Earth, but what they did not know was that Earth had been watching them back. All defense grids are online, reported Lieutenant Park. The railgun platforms are tracking the lead vessel. Missile batteries are armed and ready. Kim Tae nodded grimly. The aliens had made their first mistake by announcing their presence so obviously. Their ships were impressive, but they hung in the sky like sitting ducks. If these visitors had come in peace, they would have sent a small delegation or tried to communicate first. Instead, they had brought a war fleet. What about the other sites? Kim Tae asked. Beijing, Tokyo, and Moscow all report ready status. The Americans and Europeans are also tracking the fleet. If this goes bad, we can hit them from multiple directions. Above, the city ambassador, Cathara, was growing confused. The humans were not behaving as expected. Instead of gathering to worship the magnificent ships, they seemed to be running away or hiding. The energy readings from the surface were also troubling. The signatures looked almost like weapons charging up, but that was impossible. The humans were a primitive species who built temples and prayed to gods. Send the greeting message, Cathara ordered. The communication beam reached every electronic device in Seoul simultaneously. Televisions, radios, and computer screens all displayed the same message in broken Korean. People of Earth, we are Valkyrie. We come to help you grow. We'll teach you better ways. Prepare your leaders to meet us. In the command center, Kim Tae read the message and felt his jaw tighten. The aliens were not offering friendship or trade. They were offering to rule over humanity like adults teaching children. The arrogance was breathtaking. Sir, we are receiving multiple transmissions from the alien fleet, reported the communications officer. They are requesting permission to land delegations in major cities worldwide. They want to meet with what they call our religious leaders and tribal chiefs. Kim Tae almost laughed. religious leaders, and tribal chiefs. The aliens had been watching humanity for years, but they had completely misunderstood what they were seeing. They thought the churches and temples were the centers of human power. They had no idea about the military installations, the research facilities, or the weapons factories that humanity had built. "Send a response," Kimte ordered. "Tell them that Earth's leaders will meet with them, but only after they demonstrate their peaceful intentions by withdrawing their fleet to a safe distance." The message was transmitted upward to the waiting ships. In space, Ambassador Cathara received the reply with growing irritation. These humans were more stubborn than expected. They were actually making demands instead of submitting to superior beings. "They want us to withdraw our ships," Cathara told the bridge crew, as if they could threaten us with their primitive weapons. What the ambassador did not know was that at that very moment, hundreds of weapon systems across the planet were trained on the Valkyrie fleet, waiting for the order to fire. Colonel Parkman stared at the wall of screens showing data, streams from around the world. Every major military installation was reporting the same thing. The alien fleet remained in position above major cities, but they were not attacking. Instead, they kept sending the same types of messages over and over again. "Colonel, we have." "Another transmission from the lead ship," said Communications Officer Lee. "They're asking to speak with our high priests and spiritual leaders. They want to visit what they call our most sacred temples." Parkman rubbed his forehead. This was the 15th message in 2 hours with similar requests. The aliens seemed obsessed with human religion. They kept asking about worship ceremonies and sacred rituals. It was as if they thought Earth was some kind of primitive planet where people spent all their time praying. Dr. Lee So-young looked up from her computer terminal, where she had been analyzing the alien communications. As the lead xenolinguist for the Korean Defense Ministry, she had been working around the clock to understand the alien language patterns. What she was discovering made her stomach turn cold. "Colonel, I think I understand what is happening," she said quietly. "The aliens have been watching us, but they have been watching the wrong things." She pulled up a series of satellite images on the main screen. The pictures showed various locations around Seoul from space. Churches, temples, and other religious buildings were highlighted in red. "Look at these locations," Dr. Lee said. "These are the sites the aliens keep mentioning in their messages. They have been observing these buildings for years." They watched people going in and out. They saw large gatherings on certain days. They saw people bowing their heads and moving in organized patterns. Colonel Park studied the images. "So they think our churches and temples are the most important buildings in our society?" "Exactly, but look what they missed." Dr. Lee switched to a different view. Now the screen showed the same areas, but with different buildings highlighted in blue. Underground facilities, research centers, manufacturing plants, and military installations appeared on the map like a hidden network beneath the city. "They have no idea these exist," Dr. Lee continued. "While they were watching people pray on Sundays, we were building weapons in facilities they never detected. While they observed what they thought were primitive religious ceremonies, we were actually conducting military exercises and weapons testing." The reality of their situation began to sink in around the command center. Major Kim stepped forward with a report in his hand. "Colonel, I have been reviewing the intelligence reports from the past 5 years. Every time we detected the alien observation probes, we thought they were conducting general surveillance. But if Dr. Lee is right, they were only watching specific targets." He spread out aerial photographs on the table. "Look at this. Our missile defense installations are located here, here, and here." He pointed to various spots on the map. "But the alien probes always focused on the areas over here." His finger moved to completely different locations. The cathedral, the Buddhist temple, the large church in Gangnam. Colonel Park felt a chill run down his spine. "They think those buildings are our military headquarters?" "Worse than that," Dr. Lee said. "Based on their communications, they think those buildings are where we keep our most primitive weapons. Spears, maybe some basic explosives. They have no concept that we possess nuclear weapons, satellite systems, or advanced aircraft." Lieutenant Commander Yoon entered the room with a tablet full of new intelligence data. "Colonel, we just intercepted a communication between the alien ships. They're discussing how to best approach the tribal leaders of Earth, they believe. Our weapons are made of metal and wood. The room fell silent. The implications were staggering. Humanity had spent decades building one of the most sophisticated military forces in the galaxy, but the aliens thought they were dealing with a civilization that had barely discovered fire. Dr. Lee pulled up another screen showing global military installations. While they watched us pray, we built stealth fighters that can travel faster than sound. While they observed our religious ceremonies, we developed missiles that can strike targets on the other side of the planet. And while they thought we were worshipping gods, we were creating weapons that could destroy entire continents. Colonel Park walked to the window that looked out over Seoul. Above the city, the alien ships hung in the sky like floating jewels. Beautiful and deadly, but there. Crews had no idea what they were really facing. "How is this possible?" asked Major Kim. "The technology is clearly advanced. How could they make such a basic mistake?" Dr. Lee had been wondering the same thing. "I think it is because they are looking for what they expect to see. They have probably encountered other primitive worlds where religion and government are the same thing. They assume that our churches are also our centers of power." She pulled up a comparison chart. In their society, spiritual leaders and military leaders might be the same people. So when they see humans gathering in religious buildings, they think those are our war councils and strategy meetings. The irony was almost too much to believe. The aliens had superior technology and faster than light travel, but they had completely misunderstood human civilization. They thought they were dealing with a primitive species that prayed to gods and fought with simple weapons. Meanwhile, humanity had nuclear submarines patrolling the oceans, space stations orbiting the planet, and enough firepower to level entire star systems. The aliens had made the mistake of judging humans by their spirituality instead of their technology. Colonel Park turned back to his staff. "Continue monitoring their communications. I want to know everything they think they know about us. And keep our real capabilities hidden until we decide how to handle this situation." The greatest military misunderstanding in galactic history was about to unfold. Ambassador Cathara stepped out of the small transport vehicle, looking up at the impressive stone building before them. The structure was massive and dignified, with tall columns and carved symbols covering its walls. This had to be one of the most important temples on the planet. The humans had finally agreed to show their most sacred religious site, General Choi. Jay walked beside the alien ambassador, wearing his dress uniform with rows of medals across his chest. He had volunteered for this mission because he spoke some of the alien language and understood the delicate nature of first contact. What the alien did not know was that General Choi was one of the most decorated military commanders in human history. "Welcome to our most honored place," General Choi said carefully, using simple words that the alien's translator could handle. "Here we remember our greatest achievements." Cathara nodded with satisfaction. Finally, the humans were showing proper respect by bringing them to their holiest temple. The building's architecture was more advanced than expected for such a primitive species. But religious buildings were often the most elaborate structures any civilization could build. They walked through the main entrance, and Cathara stopped in amazement. The ceiling soared high above them, and the walls were covered with images and objects that gleamed under bright lights. "Surely these were the religious artifacts of human worship? These are your gods?" Cathara asked, pointing at a large metallic object suspended from the ceiling. General Choi looked up at the fighter jet hanging above them. The F-35 Lightning had been used in the war against the Eastern Territories 5 years ago. It had shot down 17 enemy aircraft before being retired to this memorial. "Not gods," General Choi said slowly. "This carried our warriors across great distances. It moved faster than sound. It could destroy targets from very far away." Alien's translator made strange buzzing sounds as it tried to process the words. Cathara stared at the sleek metal shape. It looked nothing like the primitive flying machines they had observed humans using. This object appeared almost as advanced as some Valkyrie vehicles. "You worship this machine?" Cathara asked, confused. "Honor it," General Choi replied. "It protected our people." They moved deeper into the memorial hall. Along the walls were displays showing various human achievements. Cathara examined each one carefully, trying to understand their religious significance. General Choi stopped in front of a large glass case containing what looked like a small metal room with windows. "This traveled to our moon," he explained. 3 humans rode inside it. "They left our world, touched the surface of our moon, and returned safely." Cathara's breathing changed. The moon was hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. For such a primitive species to reach it was impossible, unless... The alien looked more closely at the object. The metal showed signs of extreme heat exposure. The design was crude but functional. Could the humans actually have developed space travel? "Your people have been to your moon?" Cathara asked carefully. "Yes, many times. We also have machines that visit other worlds in our system. Some have traveled beyond our system to study distant stars." The translator was working harder now, making clicking and worry sounds as it processed concepts that did not fit the Elkari understanding of human capabilities. They continued through the memorial. General Choi stopped at a display case containing what appeared to be a simple metal cylinder about the size of a human torso. "And this?" Cathara asked. General Choi was quiet for a moment. This was the moment of truth. The object in the case was a replica of the first nuclear weapon ever used in warfare. The real weapon had destroyed an entire city in seconds, killing over 100,000 people instantly. "This could turn cities to ash," General Choi said quietly. "One of these weapons can destroy everything for many kilometers. We have built many of them." The alien's translator went completely silent for several seconds.
Ow.
Then it began making rapid beeping sounds, as if it was trying to reject the translation as impossible. Cathara stepped closer to the display case, studying the simple-looking device. "This small object can destroy cities?" "Yes. We have much larger ones now. Some can destroy areas the size of small countries." The ambassador felt a cold feeling spreading through their body. This could not be right. The humans were a primitive species that built temples and prayed to gods. They could not possibly possess weapons capable of mass destruction. "You use these in your religious ceremonies?" Cathara asked desperately. General Choi realized the alien still did not understand. "These are not religious objects. These are weapons of war. When our people gather in the buildings you observed, they are not praying to gods. They are planning battles, training soldiers, and building better weapons." The truth hit Cathara like a physical blow. The Valkyrie had been watching humans for years, but they had completely misunderstood what they were seeing. The stone buildings were not temples where primitive beings worshipped gods. They were military installations where an advanced warrior species planned for war. The humans had space travel. They had weapons that could destroy cities. They had flying machines that moved faster than sound. All this time, the Valkyrie had believed they were dealing with a simple religious society. Instead, they had encountered a military civilization that had been hiding its true capabilities. General Choi watched the alien's reaction with growing concern. Cathara was standing very still, staring at the nuclear weapon display. The alien's skin color was changing from light blue to dark purple. "Are you well?" General Choi asked. Cathara looked at the human general with new eyes. This was not a primitive tribal leader. This was a military commander of a species that could destroy planets. The communication from the Valkyrie fleet came at dawn. Ambassador Cathara's voice carried a new tone of authority that made Admiral Kim Tae's jaw tighten with anger. "People of Earth," the message began. "You have shown us interesting artifacts, but you remain a primitive species. We will begin the civilizing process in 7 of your days. Prepare your leaders for proper instruction. Resistance will be met with force." Admiral Kim Tae stood in the war room, surrounded by screens showing military installations across the globe. The alien ships still hung over major cities like sword points waiting to fall. After 3 days of careful diplomacy, the aliens had finally shown their true intentions. They wanted to rule humanity like parents controlling children. "Sir All, Global Defense Network's report ready status," said Colonel Park Min. "The Americans, Russians, Chinese, and Europeans are all standing by. We have submarines in position around the alien fleet." Kim Tae nodded grimly. The time for hiding was over. Aliens thought they understood human capabilities, but they had only seen what humanity wanted them to see. Now it was time for a proper introduction. Send word to all Allied forces, Kim Tae ordered. Begin Operation Mirror. Show them what we really are. The demonstration began at exactly noon, Korean time. Ambassador Cathara received an invitation to observe what the humans called a religious ceremony, a large open field outside Seoul. Curious, despite their growing suspicions, the alien accepted. From the bridge of their ship, Cathara looked down at the gathering below. Thousands of humans were arranged in perfect rectangular formations across the field. They all wore identical clothing and moved with precise coordination. This did look like some kind of religious ritual. Begin the ceremony, came Admiral Kim Tae's voice over the communication channel. The humans below began to move. But instead of the random religious dancing Cathara expected, the formations moved like a single living organism. Thousands of people stepped, turned, and marched with machine-like precision. This was not worship. This was military drill. Then came the sound. A low rumble filled the air, growing louder and louder. Cathara looked up to see shapes approaching from the horizon. At first they appeared to be birds, and the alien realized these objects were moving far too fast to be any natural creature. The first squadron of fighter jets screamed over the field at barely 100 meters altitude. The sound was deafening, and the ground shook from the sonic waves. But the humans in formation did not even flinch. They continued their precise movements as if flying death machines regularly passed overhead. More aircraft followed, bombers, the size of buildings, transport planes carrying unknown cargo, helicopters that moved like mechanical insects. All of them passed over the ceremony in perfect formation, their weapons clearly visible. Cathara gripped the railing of the observation deck. These were not the primitive flying machines the Valkyrie had observed. These aircraft looked almost as advanced as their own technology. Phase 2, Admiral Kim Tae announced. The ground began to shake. Across the field, large sections of earth moved aside to reveal hidden openings. From these underground positions emerged weapons that made Cathara's breathing stop completely. Massive artillery pieces rose from concealed bunkers. Tank formations rolled out of camouflaged positions. Missile launchers pointed their deadly cargo at the sky. In minutes, the peaceful field had become a fortress capable of destroying armies. But the most shocking sight came from the ocean. Around the world, dark shapes began breaking the surface of the water near every major coastal city. Nuclear submarines emerged simultaneously from the depths, their missile tubes clearly visible. The coordination required for such a display was staggering. Admiral Kim Tae's voice came over the communication channel again. But now he was speaking directly to the alien ship. Ambassador Cathara, you have been watching humanity for many years, but you have been watching the wrong things. On the field below, the human formations had arranged themselves into new patterns. From above, Cathara could see they spelled out words in the human language. We are not prey. You observed our people gathering in buildings and thought we were praying, Kim Tae continued. You saw us moving in organized groups and believed these were religious ceremonies. You watched us build structures and assumed they were primitive temples. More displays of military power continued around the globe. In the Pacific Ocean, aircraft carriers launched squadrons of jets. In the deserts of America, intercontinental ballistic missiles emerged from hidden silos. In the mountains of Europe, railguns the size of buildings turned to track the alien fleet. While you watched us in our churches and temples, we were in our laboratories and factories, Admiral Kim Tae said. While you observed what you thought were prayers to gods, we were actually planning, building, and testing weapons that could challenge gods themselves. The alien's skin had turned completely purple. The translator device around Cathara's neck was buzzing frantically as it tried to process the magnitude of what was being revealed. You made one critical error in your assessment, Kim Tae continued. You assumed that a species capable of spirituality must be primitive. You thought that beings who could pray must be weak, but you never considered that the same intelligence that seeks meaning in the universe might also be capable of building weapons to defend that universe. Around the world, humanity's true arsenal stood revealed. Space-based weapons platforms came online. Underground bunkers opened to show stockpiles that could fight wars for decades. Research facilities displayed technologies that the aliens had never imagined possible for such a primitive species. Ambassador Ithera realized with growing horror that the Valkyrie fleet was not facing a primitive religious civilization. They were staring down a military force that had been preparing for this moment for generations. The humans had not been praying to gods, they'd been creating weapons that could destroy them. The silence stretched for 3 full days after the demonstration. The Valkyrie fleet remained in position above Earth's cities, but no more messages came from the alien ships. In command centers around the world, human military leaders waited with their fingers hovering over weapon controls. Ambassador Cathera stood alone in their private chambers aboard the mothership, staring out at the blue planet below. Everything the Valkyrie believed about first contact had been shattered in a single afternoon. In their long history of meeting new species, they had never encountered anything like humanity. The tactical reports were devastating. Human weapons technology was not primitive at all. Their nuclear arsenal could sterilize continents. Their space-based platforms could destroy entire fleets. Their hidden submarine forces could strike from anywhere in the vast oceans. The humans had not just been hiding their capabilities, they had been actively deceiving the Valkyrie for years. But something else troubled Cathara even more. During the weapon demonstration, the alien had noticed something strange. When the human soldiers finished their display of military power, many of them had gathered in small groups. Some bowed their heads quietly. Others looked up at the sky with expressions of sadness. Few had tears in their eyes. These were not the reactions of a savage warrior race celebrating their strength. These humans seemed almost sorry that they possessed such terrible weapons. On the 4th day, a single message arrived from Earth. It was not from Admiral Kim Tae or any military commander. Instead, it came from an elderly human woman named Sister Mary Park, who lived in a small religious building in the coastal city of Busan. Honored visitors from the stars, the message began in surprisingly good Valkyrie language. I am not a military leader or government official. I spend my days caring for children and helping people in need. But I have learned your language because I believe all thinking beings can understand each other if they try hard enough. Kethera was amazed. How had this simple human learned to speak Valkyrie? The language was incredibly complex with subtle, emotional undertones that most species could never master. I would like to invite you to visit our small temple, Sister Mary continued. Not to see weapons or negotiate treaties, but to understand what humans do when we are not preparing for war. Perhaps we have more in common than either of our species realizes. After consulting with the Fleet Council, Cathara decided to accept the invitation. The ambassador took a small shuttle down to Earth, landing near the temple in Busan. The building was tiny compared to the massive memorial halls they had visited before. It was made of simple wood and stone, with a small garden filled with flowers. Sister Mary Park was waiting at the entrance. She was an old woman with gray hair and kind eyes, wearing simple brown robes. When she saw the alien ambassador, she bowed respectfully but without fear. "Welcome to our home," she said softly. "Please, come inside." The interior of the temple was nothing like what Cathera expected. There were no displays of weapons or military achievements. Instead, the walls were covered with paintings of natural scenes, mountains, rivers, and forests. Soft music played from hidden speakers. The air smelled of flowers and burning incense. "This is where humans come to pray," Sister Mary explained. "But not the kind of praying you observed from space. Here, we seek peace. We ask for wisdom. We try to understand our place in the universe." Cathara walked slowly through the temple, studying the artwork and decorations. Everything here spoke of gentleness and beauty. It was hard to believe that the same species capable of creating such peaceful beauty could also build weapons of mass destruction. "Why do you show me this?" Cathera asked. Sister Mary smiled sadly, "Because I think your people and my people have both made the same mistake. You judge us only by what you saw from far away. We judged you only by your threatening arrival with a war fleet. Neither of us looked deeper. She led the ambassador to a small room where dozens of human children were sitting quietly, drawing pictures with colored pencils. When they saw the alien, they looked curious, but not afraid. One small girl approached and offered Cathara a drawing of what appeared to be a spaceship surrounded by stars. She drew that for you, Sister Mary explained. She hopes your ships will explore beautiful places among the stars. For the first time since arriving at Earth, Cathara felt something unexpected: shame. The Valkyrie had come here intending to conquer and control these beings, but this child was offering friendship and dreams of peaceful exploration over the following hours. Sister Mary showed the ambassador more aspects of human culture that the Valkyrie had never observed: music that spoke of love and loss, poetry that explored the meaning of existence, art that captured both the beauty and pain of being alive, stories that taught children to be kind to others and protect those who were weaker. Your people are capable of great violence, Cathara observed. Yes, Sister Mary admitted. We have created terrible weapons. We have fought terrible wars. But we have also created beauty, love, and hope. We build weapons because we fear losing the things we care about most. In the temple garden, with Sister Mary, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, the alien realized that humans were not primitive savages or cold-hearted warriors. They were complex beings who struggled with the same questions that troubled the Valkyrie: how to survive in a dangerous universe while remaining true to their highest ideals. What happens now? Sister Mary asked. Cathara looked up at the alien. Ships still hanging in the evening sky. Now we learn to see each other as we truly are.